allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands.
Roll call.
Deputy Supervisor McCarthy.
Here.
Councilman Wareheim.
Here.
Councilman Creighton.
Here.
Councilman Malloy.
Here.
Under public hearings, Town Board to consider proposed amendments to Chapter 322 of the Code of the Town of Smithtown entitled Building Zone Ordinance as it relates to Public Board of Zoning Appeals fees.
The amendment is in your packet right next to you, and this is a proposed amendment to the code to change one of the fees for the Board of Zoning Appeals. By way of introduction, what we are doing is lowering the fee for a request for a paving variance. If I could explain why we are doing this, the town several years back broke up variances and charged them according to the task at hand. Those which were complex and regarded a lot of effort were priced accordingly. And for example, a certificate of existing use on a non-conforming structure was paid a high price because it took a large amount of staff time. A variance request or setback for a shed was priced very low because it required a very little effort to review the facts of that particular case. That said, we recently amended the code to try to consolidate. We had a large variety of variances, and inadvertently in consolidating the code, we had paving variances being charged the same as some of the more severe variances. This was never intended, and the current fee for a request for a paving variance is about $800, and it should be matched with the other variances of the setbacks of the same amount. A paving variance, by the way, is for something we have limitations on how much you could pave in your front yard or rear yard or side yard. If somebody, for example, wanted to place a U-shaped driveway on their front lawn, chances are in most of the smaller zones they would need a variance. And this is not a severe issue, so therefore we feel that it should be charged the same as all other variances basically in its class. Unless there's any questions by the board, that's essentially what the variance is all about.
Any questions by the board? Anybody wish to be heard on this? Move to close the hearing.
Second?
Deputy Supervisor McCarthy.
Yes.
Councilman Wareheim.
Yes.
Councilman Creighton.
Yes.
Councilman Malloy.
Yes.
Under public hearings, item number 2, the Town Board to consider amending the zone code and/or map of Town of Smithtown as petitioned by T-Mobile Northeast LLC, petition number 2011-05, for a special exception for the addition of a wireless communication facility to be constructed on the southwestern portion of the property located at 391 North Country Road, northwest side, 130 feet northwest of Lynn Court, Smithtown, New York.
Good evening, members of the Town Board. My name is Keith Brown. I'm with the law firm of Brown & Altman, 510 Broad Hollow Road, Suite 110, Melville, New York, 11747. If you could just excuse me one second. Thank you for providing this time for the applicant, T-Mobile Northeast LLC, to make this application. As the board is no doubt aware, T-Mobile is a public utility under the laws of the state of New York and is also licensed by the Federal Communications Commission. I have a number of exhibits that we'd like to submit. The first one being that we have the FCC license that was issued to T-Mobile in connection with its ability to operate wireless communication systems throughout the United States, which I'd like to submit with other exhibits that are going to take the part of the record tonight. And also, as a matter of housekeeping, I have all the affidavits of notice and the affidavits of posting that I'd like to submit to the clerk's office at this point.
Okay. Thank you.
I should also introduce my colleague, Michael DeLeo, who's here helping me from my office. Members of the board, I'm here tonight presenting an application for a special exception for a wireless communication facility, a Tier 3 application, Pursuant to Chapters 242 and 322, specifically Sections 322, 30.3, subsection C, and 322-102.1 of the Town of Smithtown Code, to construct a wireless communication facility at the property located at 391 North Country Road in Smithtown, which is currently owned by the Smithtown Healthcare Property, LLC, and operates the Smithtown Healthcare Center. The communication facility is needed in order to resolve a coverage deficiency being currently experienced by T-Mobile to the north, south, east, and west of the site. The FCC most recently recognized the necessity of comprehensive wireless service in November 18, 2009, when it issued a declaratory ruling in which it stated that wireless services are essential to the economic, civic, and social lives of over 270 million Americans. Americans are now in the transition toward increasing reliance on their mobile devices for broadband services, in addition to voice services, and without access to mobile wireless networks, however, they cannot receive voice and broadband services from providers. And that providers continue to build out their networks to provide such services, and a crucial requirement of this is to provide obtaining state and local government approvals for constructing towers and attaching transmission equipment to pre-existing structures. The addition of an antenna to an existing structure is unlikely to have a significant visual impact on the community, stated the FCC. And also, the Center for Disease Control conducted a national health interview study during July and December of 2008 concerning wireless telephone usage, and found some amazing statistics, which I'd like to read off to the board members. More than one of every 5, or 20.2% of American households, had only wireless telephones. This represents an increase of 2.7 over the first half of the year 2008, 3 years ago, which is the largest 6-month increase observed since 2003. And that an additional 14.5 of American households received all or almost all wireless telephone calls despite having landline phones within their household. In other words, there's a transition going on in American households that many households are getting rid of their landline phones and moving towards wireless phones exclusively. Now, the instant application before you tonight, the property is designated at District 200, Section 80, Block 3, Lots 6, 7, and 10, and the communication facility is being constructed exclusively on Lot number 7. The zoning designation on the property where the facility is to be located is R21, and the property is approximately 451,000 square feet, or 10.37 acres, in area. The existing building that's on the site accounts for more than 41,000 square feet, or 9% of the property. The property is situated, as most of you know, on the northwest side of North Country Road, between the Long Island Railroad tracks, which border the property to the northwest, and Lynn Court, located approximately 100 feet to the southwest. The communication facility will be located in the southwest corner of the property, southwest of the existing building. The property is currently developed, as I indicated, with the Smithtown Health Center, which provides rehabilitation and nursing facilities. The communication facility will be located approximately 112 feet from the existing building. The northeast portion of the property is heavily wooded and undeveloped. There are no other wireless carriers located on the property. To the north and northwest of the property, the Long Island Railroad tracks, with residential and municipal property located further to the north and northwest. The areas to the south, west, and east of the property consist primarily of single-family residential uses. I don't need to go through the zoning process to this point, except for to state that the notices were sent out to all residents as required under the town code within 200 feet, and a notice sign was posted as required on May 20th, 2011. The proposed build. T-Mobile intends to construct a 55-foot concealment pole in the southwest of the existing building in order to overcome the existing tree canopy height, which is 48 feet in that immediate area. They wish to install and affix 3 sectors of 2 stacked panel antennas each for a total of 6 antennas within the concealment pole at a centerline height of 52 feet 2 inches above ground level, or 45 feet above ground level, respectively. it's necessary that because they're going in a concealment pole, they have to stack the antennas 3 on top of one another in order to achieve the coverage objective. They also will be installing several base equipment at the base of the pole. That will be included in a concrete pad measuring approximately 22 feet by 12 feet. And the top height of the equipment cabinets will be 7 feet 5 inches, and there'll be 2 lighting fixtures that will be top out at a height of 10 feet. Surrounding that, there'll be a 6-foot-high chain-link fence with privacy slats to enclose the equipment compound, and around that will be evergreen screening of 8-foot arborvitae trees. Significantly, T-Mobile is not proposing to remove a single tree on the site. All existing trees will remain untouched, so that all existing buffers between the communication facility and the abutting residences will remain in place. Now, this particular area of Smithtown is not unlike many other areas of Long Island, and that is, it's a sprawling area of many single-family homes. T-Mobile had a very difficult time trying to locate a site that was suitable to put a communication facility in. And having driven the site myself 3 times, I can attest to that fact. They looked at several alternative locations within the surrounding area. First, they looked at the Vineyard property on Edgewood Avenue, which is just north and west of the current location. This property did not work well within their existing network because it was slightly to the north and west of outside of their search ring where they needed to be, because they're trying to find coverage within this area of the existing, there's surrounding about 5 or 6 other communication facilities. And finally, they did look into the Suffolk County Water Authority property directly across the railroad tracks, but unfortunately, Suffolk County Water Authority was not interested in leasing the property to them for that purpose. Now, in connection with the wireless ordinance contained within the town code, the communication facility complies with not only the town's comprehensive plan and its stated goals, but also the wireless ordinance that was created approximately 10 years ago. First, the communication facility will help further modernize the town's infrastructure so that the needs of the town and the residents will be met more efficiently. The communication facility will provide necessary wireless phone and data support to residents, businesses, and individuals, as well as municipal services necessary for safety and protection. Second, the communication facility will help improve the local economy by providing necessary wireless capability and support to businesses located within this section of town. And third, the communication facility will provide for the wireless needs of all segments of the town's population. And fourth, the communication facility will provide modern communication technology so that the town and its businesses will remain competitive and economically viable in the 21st century. Now, as set forth in a narrative that we submitted to the Planning Department in connection with this application, this communication facility complies with all the criteria set forth in sections 322-102.1, 242.5, and 242.6. I won't go through each and every item. We actually have several experts who are prepared to testify tonight, if the board so choose, in support of the application. Well, they'll identify most of the criteria has been met, all of the criteria has been met under the town wireless ordinance. Most importantly, I will point out one very important fact. The fall zone requirement that the town has is that the communication, the pole, the unipole here, as we call it, because it's just a pole that comes up from the ground, painted brown so it blends in with the woods behind it, is going to be 55 feet. The town wireless ordinance requires that there is nothing where people would habitate within double that height, or 110 feet. In the location we are proposing, there is nothing there. It's just simply grass and woodland. So we meet that very important requirement. The second thing is that we meet the requirement that you can't go 10 feet higher than the existing tree canopy, which is very important for a lot of reasons. In order for the facility to function properly, it has to be able to overreach the tree canopy. Otherwise, the foliage will diminish the radio frequencies as people are trying to talk. And we tried to keep it as low as possible, but yet achieve the height that we needed to get over the tree canopy height, which you'll hear tonight is 48 feet above ground level. and that the pole has a top height of 55 feet above ground level, which gives us a clearance of only 7 feet. So we really made an attempt to keep it as low as we possibly could and not be above the tree canopy too much. So I'd like to introduce the experts that are here tonight with me. They are prepared to testify in support of the application, but each of them has prepared a written report, which we have submitted into the record already. First, we have Paul Gardelman from William F. Collins Architects. Paul is a New York State licensed architect and will be available to explain, among other things, the design of the communication facility that's being proposed. Second, we have Donna Marie Stippo from DMS Consulting Services. She will testify as to whether the communication facility will have an environmental impact on the surrounding area, and she will also use computer-generated photographs to demonstrate what the facility will look like after construction, as well as testify to the viability of the site from a planning perspective. Next, we have Mamoon Mubashir from T-Mobile. He is a radio frequency engineer who will explain the need for this communication facility at this particular location and how this proposed facility will eliminate and partially eliminate an existing deficiency gap being experienced on the North Country Road area. Next, we have David Collins of Pinnacle Telecom Group. David will testify as to the health and safety issues and that this facility will comply fully with the FCC standards for radio frequency emissions. And finally, we have Jed Nelson of Burt Nelson Associates, who will testify as to any impact on real estate values on the surrounding area. The board members have each of their corresponding resumes as well. So at this time, I'd like to call up Mr. Paul Gardelman to testify.
These are in addition to what he has for our T-Mobile. Their addition to what you have. Yeah.
State your name, address, and employer. When you're ready. Mr. Gardelman, could you please state your name, address, and employer for the record?
Yes, my name is Paul Gardelman. I'm a registered architect in the state of New York since 1989. I am an associate with the firm of William F. Collins AIA Architects, LLP. We are located at 12-1 Technology Drive, Setauket, New York, 11733. Ready? Okay.
Mr. Gardelman, could you please explain to the members of the board the drawings that you've prepared tonight and just what the facility is basically all about?
Sure. The drawing that's up on the easel at this point is an overall site plan of the existing facility. The building is located in the southwesterly portion of the site. To the southwest of that is our proposed equipment compound that will be enclosed by a chain link fence with vision blocking slats. The pole will be located within that enclosure, as well as the equipment cabinets. The equipment cabinets sit on a poured concrete pad, and the enclosure is surrounded by the evergreen plantings that Mr. Brown mentioned. The pole itself is 55 feet high above grade, and the antennas are, as Mr. Brown mentioned, 6 antennas concealed within a concealment cavity of the pole. So essentially it is just, you know, a single element or a unipole, as he mentioned. The power and telephone are brought in from the public right-of-way underground. It consists of an electric meter and a panel box, and then each of the equipment cabinets have a cable tray running from the equipment cabinets to the pole, all within the fenced enclosure. And essentially, it's fairly simple, simple build, and that's the idea of the whole installation. So if there's any questions, I can certainly answer them.
Do any of the board members have any questions of Mr.
Actually,
Garland?
I have a couple of questions. Well, you have the antenna closest to the homes, and you're willing to go to Suffolk County Water Authority across the railroad tracks. Why aren't you all the way at the other end of the property, away from the homes?
You have to understand that there is a property owner here that we have a lease with, and at this point, they indicated that they preferred that we move to locate the facility on that side of the property. I will say that based on the question by you, Councilman, I'd be happy to speak to my client who's here tonight and talk to them to see if they would consult with the property owner to see if they'd be amenable to moving the location of the pole. But you have to understand, the reason why it was selected here was because the trees in this particular area are much more mature than on the north side. So it gave a good camouflage background in order to hide the pole, and it would blend right into the trees. On the north side of the property, as you know, it's a little more scrub-like. They're not as mature. They don't reach nearly, I could ask the environmental expert exactly how high they achieve, but I think they only go about 25 to 30 feet.
Yeah, but I think it'd be a little more aesthetic pleasing because you got the railroad tracks and Suffolk County Water behind it. I think that would be much nicer for the local neighborhood.
Okay. If you like, I'd speak to my client now about that.
Okay. I have another question for you.
Sure.
Why didn't you consider panel arrays on the building instead of a monopole, like St. James Nursing Home has on their roof, and they have covering over it, you can't even see it?
Right. We did take a look at St. James Nursing Home. Obviously, it's the same carriers. They are experienced with it. The problem was the design in particular of this building, which Mr. Gardner could tell you more about. But it's only a 2-story building, and because of the pitched roof, it really didn't lend itself towards doing anything that would remotely come close to achieving the heights that they need here. In other words, the lower height really didn't achieve all that much. You know, and if they could have, believe me, they would have done it that way. Unfortunately, though, it was just a selection of the design because, again, you know, most of the buildings were designed not with the thought of doing that. They picked their design based on, you know, their taste at the time.
And 2 more questions I have for you. The Suffolk County Water Authority tower that's just southwest of that, that's really high, and there's already things on that. What's wrong with that location for you?
We're already there.
You're already there?
Yes.
And you need this one that close to that one?
Yeah. Unfortunately, as you'll see in a moment with the propagation maps, that there's a very big hole that extends from the facility, I think you're talking about on Hurton,
Yeah.
From there going all the way north past Edgewood. You'll see it in a moment when the RF engineer comes
And
up.
how about the head of the Harbor Village Hall where they have a 100-plus foot tower there? Are you on that one also?
Yes.
So that small little area
Yes.
between
That's
100
the whole-
foot and 100-plus on the other, you need one in between?
Right, and
That close?
that's the difficulty here is that, you know, you're trying to fit it in. For lack of better expression, you know, you try to lay the facilities out like bricks almost, you know, where they're a staggered pattern. So you have to basically take what properties and uses you can get. You know, T-Mobile and the other carriers will always try first to look for an industrial property and an existing structure if they can find it. When they can't find it, they then look for commercial use like this, you know, in which to locate the facility. And then the last resort is to look for some type of residentially zoned or used property, but that's only as a last resort. It's really more of a function of the fact that you know, the way Long Island has evolved, that our business districts tend to be very small and our residential areas tend to be quite large.
I think, I guess, the first thing we said, or I said, is the other end of the property by the railroad tracks and Suffolk County Water, I think would make your neighbors a lot more happier than where you're considering putting it.
Okay, I'll be happy to. Why don't I ask the next witness, if
Okay.
none of the other board members have a question, we could put the next witness on and I could speak to my client in the interim. Thank you, Paul. I'd now like to call Donna Marie Stippo.
They got the transmission poles right there.
Donna Marie Stippo, DMS Consulting, 65 Ramapo Valley Road, and that's Mahwah, New Jersey. We were retained to prepare some of the items within the ordinance that are required with respect to the overall review. That would be inclusive of the sight lines. So there were essentially, and in the packets that you were given, 23 photographs taken of from the surrounding properties. Each house had to have a photograph taken in the direction of where the facility would be. In June of 2010, we were retained to drive around the area and photograph where this structure would be visible. We performed what's called a crane test. The boom went up to the height, it dropped over the exact location, which we pinned by GPS, and therefore we have what's called a control point. So we knew exactly the height, we knew exactly where it was going to be, and we would be able to simulate through our 3D modeling program what this would look like and where it would be visible from. In the surrounding area, from each sight line as directed by the code, if in fact this was visible, we were to show that to you. Just so that we're clear, out of the 23 sight lines we took, we only had 4 in which we had visibility, and we've presented those in our packet here. In totality, we offer 6 views simply because we had limited or de minimis visibility of the structure at that time. As council had mentioned, it's the height that drove the limited view on the horizon as well as where the placement is. Your clearest view or easiest sight line to see what it would look like would be from within the subject property itself. But we did photograph from every house on the surrounding area. Out of the 6 views, I think it's important, since we have so many folks here, to go through the 6 and the addresses so that we're clear, and the 2 maps that are there, and I will leave the board available for the public to look at also. Within the surrounding area, we have sight lines. The first 4 views would be sight lines, which would be depicted both on the drawings as well as within the photo sims. We have a view taken from the driveway of 5 Lyman Court, which is 408 feet from the structure, and we're looking in a northeast direction. Does it come? Does it? Oh, thank you. Okay. This viewpoint, if you take a look at where the arrow is, it's simply because the structure is actually buried in the tree line. So the crane has a cream-colored boom on it, which is, it assists us to actually see where it's going to be placed. And what we did is we put in, as council mentioned, this would be painted a dark brown. So from this view shed, with respect to where this would be located, you'll see where the red arrow is. It doesn't crest the tree line. It's not necessarily visible. You see some of it through the wooded area, which would be a brown. So with respect to visibility, it actually blends in with the colorations and the current existing view shed. Sightline number 2 was from the front of 16 Lyman Court with a 35 millimeter lens, and we're at 250 feet, and that would be sightline here. It's tipping. We actually put a orangey red construction flag on it because of the tree line, so that we'd be able to pick it up. You're tipping the flag. It's directly in this section of the tree line. This would be seasonal with respect to visibility, although we felt it was very important to show you that there would be some visibility in an off-season or a leaf-off season. And the red flag is right within the tree line here, so you would have the structure coming down within this area. And that would be your sight line number 2. Sight line number 3 was from the front of 7 Lyman Court, and that would be this, this picture here. We have the existing view, which is the ranch, and then you'll see the visibility. Simply because of where it's located, and we have a dip in the tree line, you have visibility with respect to this sight line. So you'll see the brown pole in the simulated view. And then number 4 was from 36 Carnegie Drive. And this is sight line 4. This structure is currently looking through its rear yard to the municipal poles, the utility lines, and the transformers. You'll see right here the top of the crane was visible, and we put the top of the pole. This would have seasonal visibility with respect to the actual view shed, which would be consistent with what is already currently in the view shed from this rear of this home. 2 other views, we captured the crane, so therefore we would have visibility, and they were from within the subject parcel, and that would be your view number 1 and 2. You'll see what the structure is actually going to look like, and then we also put in here from this view shed the ability to show you what the chain link fencing was going to look like. We didn't put the arborvitae in just so that you would be able to see what the compound looked like with chain link fencing and the chocolate or green slats that they would put in. It all depends on the aesthetics. Those were the 6 viewpoints that we were able to show you with respect to visibility. Although I canvassed a half-mile radii and have photographs from the surrounding area, as well as from head of the harbor, which are the homes along Edgewood Ave and on the opposite side of the railroad tracks, we had no visibility of the existing structure while it was erected, and therefore we would have no visual visibility from which to take photographs. Sightline, for the most part, was negated due to the tree line, where the structure is being placed, and the limited height of this facility. As we're all well aware, these towers can go up to 150 feet, depending on the surrounding environs and what's required. At 55 feet in height with the deciduous tree line that is at a mature level, you have a difficult time seeing the actual crane, therefore you'd have a difficult time from the majority of the area of actually seeing the existing structure. The views that would be available would be of the stealth enclosure. This is a unipole, so all of the cabling, all of the antennas, and the actual physical components would be within the interior. So we're looking at simply just a unipole design or flagpole design. Views of the proposed structure would not block or hinder of the existing view shed. Simply because of where it's located, it would not hinder the view sheds from the surrounding residential community. The facility is a passive use, so although it is visible within a limited number of areas, it would not change the existing level of any traffic that's currently in the area. It does not emit fumes or odors. It does not give off a vibration that would be disturbing to the surrounding residential area or quiet enjoyment. This is an unmanned facility, so we don't change parking within the existing property. And it wouldn't change any of the current or future development within the subject parcel or the neighborhood. Based on the limited level of visibility from the half-mile radius that we looked at, the proposed structure would, for the majority of the surrounding residents, would not be visible, which is, I think, something that was important to bring out not only in the photographs, but to bring out in the sight lines. We wouldn't have a change to any of the general character of the area, and we would not alter the environmental conditions. I don't know if you have any questions for me or...
Any questions?
Thanks, Ms. Dippo. And I just confirmed with the RF engineer the site
Yes,
at
open the
Village.
microphone.
I'm sorry. I I just confirmed with the T-Mobile representative that the site located at the village ahead of the harbor is 500 North Country Road, and we're there, located in that flagpole. So,
And right, I'm sure you're aware of it, right along the railroad tracks we were talking about, I just mentioned earlier, where I think the residents would like it if it did go. You have 50-foot transmission poles already there by, LIPA. If you blended this in with those 50-foot transmission poles on the other end of the property, people wouldn't even notice it's there at all, and
Right.
it'd be a lot nicer to the neighborhood.
yeah, the one thing that the board should just keep in mind from a legal perspective of the zoning code, that we would require a variance of that full zone requirement, because as you know, that the way that property, as my colleague just pointed out, as that property goes further to the north, it tapers down smaller. So,
Well, it's pretty long, so if you find the area where you wouldn't have to go for a variance and figure that out on your calculation possibly, if you work it out with who you're renting from, maybe you can find a proper spot where you wouldn't need any of it.
right. I guess my question would be, would the board, if everything worked out and we were able to, find a location closest to the railroad tracks that did require a variance, would the board support us in that effort, knowing that any variance would have to be granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals?
Well, like I said, I want to hear the balance of the hearing. I want to hear what
Okay.
people have to say before I.
I think it's just something that the board members should bear in mind. I know my client, would be interested in that. And because the CBA obviously is an autonomous board, they have to make their own ruling, so to speak.
Thank you. Are you done,
Okay.
counsel?
No, actually, next we have Mamoun Mabashir from T-Mobile is going to testify next. I don't know if you swore in the other prior witnesses, but.
We don't swear people in.
No? Okay. Okay. Mamoun, if you could just state your name, address, and your employer for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Mamoun Mubashir, and I work for T-Mobile. Our address is 3500 Sunrise Highway, East Islip, New York.
Excuse me one second. He just got off the phone with the landlord.
Yeah, so I just wanted to show the propagation maps for the area. Like the board member also, honorable board member also mentioned that we have a site to the northwest as well, but that site is 1.36 miles away. And as you can see, the red dot on this map is the location where the pole is proposed right now. And the closest site we have is to the southwest of the property, which is a 50-foot water tank. And then, all the other sites, all the other existing sites are a mile or more from this location. On this particular map, the green color represents the areas where we have reliable in-building coverage in the area. And in other areas, we find difficulty for our customers. They drop calls, or they are unable to transmit, receive, or maintain telephone calls when they're inside the buildings. Now I'm just going to flip through the maps and show you the proposed coverage from this, from the subject site, as well as the in-vehicle coverage, which is represented in blue color on the following maps.
I just have one question for you. Are there other carriers talking to you about joining you on this poll?
Not that I'm aware of, but maybe,
Sorry?
not that I'm aware of, but maybe, our site acquisition agent may know more.
Because I was just wondering, I travel that corridor every day, and I don't have T-Mobile, but I have no problem with reception, either on Edgewood Avenue or on 25A, so I was just wondering.
Yeah. Typically, we try to actually co-locate on any existing tall structures or any other sites. That's our first choice always. But in this area, in this particular case, we didn't find any other tall structure.
Thank you.
Would you grab the microphone? Pull it right out.
So this is how the proposed sites coverage will be for in-building. And if you look at the composite, then this is how it will look from the existing sites and then from this side. And now if you look at the in-vehicle coverage, which means that for people who are driving in the area while inside their cars, this is how our reliable coverage is at the moment from the existing sites. So you can see, that the sites which are farther away, they have some spotty coverage, but it's not regardless because it's not continuous. It means, that you may enter into a patch and you may be able to keep the conversation going, but then there may be instances where you will drop call or you will have poor voice quality and issues like that. And then for the proposed site, so this site will be able to solidify and enhance and provide the in-vehicle coverage in all these areas, which are very important. And if you look at the composite, then we'll have this area covered in a very nice manner with the help of this site.
Do any of the members of the board have any questions for? Okay. I just spoke with the representative from T-Mobile, and I'm happy to report that we spoke to the landlord and that he is amenable to moving the location of the pole to the north side, provided that it gets moved as far away, actually, and it makes sense, the more I'm thinking about it as I'm standing here, to move it as far away from the residents as possible, towards the corner of the lot closest to the railroad tracks. So, good news. Okay. So the question I had earlier then, in terms of, trying to find this happy medium, it would be, of course, subject to, working out the terms of the lease between the landlord and T-Mobile. But I guess if we can try to find some happy medium that doesn't require variance relief, or if it does require variance relief, if we could, take care of it, address it at that point in time.
You have to work it out with our planning director, but Frank, if they move that to a different site, could that be part of this hearing, or it have to be a whole new hearing?
Well, that would be up to the board because you're the ones that are reviewing the special exception. If you're directing that has to be, then the answer is no. If, on the other hand, the applicant decides to move it to a site that was not discussed at this public hearing, then definitely you would need a public hearing. So if you direct it and there is a general agreement on it, no, that is why we have the public hearing, is to make those decisions. And the board has that authority to make those decisions.
And one thing that I was remiss in talking about when Ms. Stippo was up here was this was one of the drawings that was submitted in connection with the wireless ordinance and the requirements. And this just, to me, dramatically demonstrates the proportion of the pole to the existing building that's there. So you could see that when laid out over the entire width of the property, that it's only slightly higher than the existing building, and I think they're fake chimneys on the ends of the buildings. So, thank you. Okay, next I'd like to call Dave Collins from Pinnacle up. Mr. Collins, if you could please state your name, address, and employer for the record.
Dave Collins, last name spelled C-O-L-L-I-N-S. I'm employed by Pinnacle Telecom Group, and their address is 14 Ridgedale Avenue, Cedar Knolls, New Jersey. Thank you. Okay, I'm here to speak to the issue of compliance with the FCC rules and regulations concerning radio frequency energy exposure to humans. In short, we comply. The proposed site will comply with all the rules and regulations. The federal government sets a standard for maximum permissible radio frequency energy levels at antenna sites, and also provides a standard engineering formula in order to determine that level, which is then compared to the standard, and you find out whether or not you comply or not. The standard itself is very conservative. It only allows a very low level of radio frequency energy, and the methodology of the engineering formula is such that all calculated answers that come from it, the results, are worst case. All the inputs to the formula are such that the answers are always the worst possible case that could result from the antennas. Okay, in this particular case, we did the calculations, and the worst case in terms of a simple percent It's the easiest way to describe this is in terms of a percentage. 100% is the maximum permitted level. Anything underneath that, and we comply with the rules and regulations. Well, in this particular case, the worst case scenario around the antenna site at ground level in terms of a percentage would be 0.9019%. That's less than 1% of what the FCC permits. It is 110 times below the maximum level permitted, so we are in compliance by a very wide margin. All right, thank you.
I just want to, as this board is no doubt aware, and certainly Mr. DeRubius is aware, that according to the Telecommunications Act of 1996, with Mr. Collins' testimony and based on his calculations, they promulgated a standard with respect to radio frequency emissions. And if the site is well below such a standard, then this board and any other board is preempted from considering RF emissions with respect to zoning applications. And that's stated under Section 332 of the Telecommunications Act of 1996. Thank you. And next, I'd like to call Jed Nelson, please. Mr. Nelson, if you'd be kind enough to state your name, address, and employer for the record.
Members of the board, my name is Jed Nelson. I am the vice president of Burt Nelson Associates. We are a real estate appraisal and consulting firm located at 407 East Meadow Avenue, East Meadow, New York. I am a New York State General Certified Real Estate Appraiser. I've been appraising real property across Long Island and in the 5 boroughs for the past 28 years. I also hold a New York State real estate broker's license and am actively appraising and involved in brokerage. I've been hired by T-Mobile to do an analysis of the effects of the installation of a wireless telecommunication on real property values in the area. I've been studying real estate values and the effects that telecommunications has on property values and marketabilities of the properties for the past 10 years. My studies include approximately 15 sites that have had wireless telecommunications installed. I handed in a report that includes 9 studies and outlines, in my professional opinion, wireless telecommunications have no adverse effect on property values or the marketability of residential properties in the area. If the board has any questions, I'd be glad to answer it, but my report has been submitted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Nelson. Thank you, members of the board. At this point in time, we have no further witnesses. I would like to save some time after comments from the public just to address any comments they may have raised. Thank you.
Okay. We have Nina, S-U-G-A-M-E-L-I.
I live at 40, my name is Nina Sugamelli, S-U-G-A-M-E-L-I. I live at 46 Carnegie Drive, Smithtown, New York, 11787. My house backs up onto 25A. It faces the Smithtown nursing home there. And my biggest concern is that this is going to affect people's health, and even my grandchild that comes over to me and plays in the yard. And I have read on the computer that this can affect your health. It can give you leukemia, it can give you Alzheimer's, and it can give you numerous other health problems. And also, I feel that we have enough problems with this nursing home across the way with lights and everything else. And I don't know what this is going to, what more this is going to affect me and my family. And my daughter has Verizon, and she uses it all the time in the home, and she never has any problem getting through. So I don't see why we need this in our backyard. Thank you.
Thank you. Philip Calver-Wyden.
My name is Philip Claiborne, and I live at 390 North Country Road, Smithtown, New York. And the spot you want to move it is directly across from my house. And they keep on saying that you're not going to see it. What happens in the wintertime when the leaves fall? It's going to be visible at that location from all over, anybody driving on 25A. I also had T-Mobile, and I had no reception problems whatsoever in the area. So I don't know what this is for. I have no idea. And it does affect property values between 5 and 20%. So I don't know what the expert is talking about, but he's wrong. So I oppose any change to amend the zoning code.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Robert Scully.
Can you hear me? You hear me?
Yes.
My name is Robert Scully. I live at 7 Lynam Court in Smithtown, New York, 11787. My property is adjacent to 391 North Country Road and the proposed site of the installation. And the proposed cell tower would be located about the base of the tower would be located about 120 to 150 feet from my property line. My neighbors have or will express their concerns about this proposal, and I support them strongly. In the interest of time and in order to avoid repetition, I'll restrict my comments to two of my major objections. The first is my grave concern about the exception to the zoning law itself, and the second is my concern with what I perceive to be a project approval process which overwhelmingly favors the project sponsor, T-Mobile in this case. To present my first objection, I should present a brief background. For centuries, common law has upheld the concept of the right to quiet enjoyment, which states that landowners are entitled to the enjoyment of their lands without the disturbance caused by a nuisance created by their neighbor. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the law of nuisance became difficult to administer because competing property uses often posed a nuisance to each other, and the cost of litigation to settle the issue grew prohibitive. However, the centuries-old concept of the right to quiet enjoyment has endured. As such, most jurisdictions, including Smithtown, now have a system of land use planning and zoning laws that describe what activities are acceptable in a given location. These zoning laws and land use regulations are also an unwritten covenant between the zoning authorities and the citizen. There is an expectation that the zoning laws will remain constant except in the most unusual circumstances. Absent this expectation, it is reasonable to assume that potential home buyers will avoid areas where zoning regulations might appear to be up for grabs to the highest bidder, thereby depressing property values. The T-Mobile cell phone tower constitutes an industrial activity and is therefore a de facto nuisance in a residential area. It is incompatible with the expectations of residential living. It just doesn't belong there. Hampton Town officials have recognized this concept by revising their code regarding cell phone towers, stating a preference for their location in commercial or industrial areas. I call for a moratorium on the installation of any new cell phone towers in Smithtown until the Down Board and the citizens have had the opportunity to review and revise as appropriate the laws and regulations pertaining to the installation of cell phone towers.
Thank you.
May I continue for another 30 seconds or so?
Everybody's going to get 3 minutes, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Jeanette Scully.
Jeanette Scully, 7 Lynam Court. As my husband just mentioned, our property is adjacent to the nursing home and very close to the proposed site of this tower. My first point that I would like to address is your notice of public notice of this hearing. There were 2 errors in that notification. First, you indicated that the property in question was adjacent to Lynn Court, L-Y-N-N Court. This is incorrect. In the second paragraph, you describe the parcel of land as being Smithtown Branch. Lynham Court is not part of the branch. Due to those 2 errors, I feel that you have given us a flawed notification, and therefore I ask that this topic be tabled for tonight and discussed at another town zoning committee meeting. In addition to that, I also want to address the question of property values. It has been stated in the New York Times and several articles that property values of property adjacent to these towers is diminished. We also want to address the concept of the perception of danger. You know, in the 60s, we were assured by the government that Agent Orange was safe. Now, 45 years later, the VA has designated 14 diseases which are attributable to Agent Orange used in Vietnam. Who is to say that this cell phone tower in 45 years will be designated as the cause of disease in our children and our grandchildren? We ask you to consider these facts, and we ask you to consider the fact that the people on Lynham Court, even though we are few in number, have a right to our privacy. We have a right to the sanctity of this property, which we purchased in residential area, and we should not be infringed upon. How can we, as residents of Lynham Court, go up against T-Mobile? They have these people here to testify. What do we have? We can't afford these people. It's up to you to protect our rights as citizens of Smithtown. We are paying high taxes for this protection, and we think we are entitled to it. So, and Mr. McCarthy, I want to thank you for your concern. You are the only member of this zoning board who has asked any questions or brought up any points of value, and I thank you for that.
Philip Herzog. Fred, I'm sorry.
Good evening. My name is Fred Herzog. I live at 12 Lynham Court, Smithtown, 11787. When the nursing home was built, I went to Frank DeRubius' office. He was kind enough to give me an appointment, and we went over a number of my concerns at that point. And he promised that the courtyard would not be broken through. He followed through on that, and I appreciate that. One of the things that came up in that meeting was that a nursing home was considered a private residence, and that the land was zoned for a private residence, and that a nursing home was allowed to use that land because it was a private residence. Now, I don't think I'd have much success if I decided that I wanted to put a cell tower on my private residence. So the nursing home either is or it is not a private residence. And I don't see that a tower is appropriate on that property for that reason. Also, I'd like to point out that the town of Huntington, in the Newsday this past week, has addressed this issue of cell towers as whether it's appropriate in neighborhoods such as ours, and they've put a moratorium on it. And just like Mr. DeRubius came through and honored his word 15-plus years ago, I would ask this board to do the same, that to stand up for the residents, and if we could take a deep breath, look at this whole issue, and find out where the appropriate locations for this are. For example, you know, should it be on the south end of the property or the north end of the property? It really hasn't been shaken out in terms of its effect on the surrounding neighborhood. So, and lastly, I'd like to mention that 25A is designated as a scenic highway. I'd like to know what that means, if it doesn't mean something like this belongs or doesn't belong. Is it a scenic highway or is it not? Thank you.
Thank you. I have 30 Carnegie Drive, person living in the neighborhood. We're going to need a name for the record, though.
Hi, my name is Mary Grace Lamonaco. I live at 30 Carnegie Drive.
Thank you.
I feel that, okay, the town ordinance, if you have a town ordinance for a reason, we follow it or we don't. I feel that having a tower in the neighborhood, whether we have trees or not, should not be in this neighborhood. We pay very high taxes to live in this neighborhood, and my backyard will look at this tower. I don't want to see a tower out of my backyard, whether it's summer, fall. Okay. 55 feet is a great height when it's over the tree line. Okay. Once the trees lose their leaves, you're going to see the tower, whether it's brown, silver, you know, hot pink, it doesn't matter. You're going to see the tower. Okay. If 25A is a scenic road, a cell tower is just going to take that away. You know, this is pure profit. Having T-Mobile in the area and the nursing home, it's a profit. They are receiving some kind of stipend for having this tower on the property. T-Mobile is looking to get more customers. It's pure profit and greed. It has nothing to do with the neighborhood. It is a health risk. I'm a nurse, I know, okay? I feel I have a different cell company. I go up and down Long Island. I never lose service, ever. So to say that, you know, this is going to be helpful, maybe they need to find some alternatives, okay, other than having a tower in Smithtown and in my backyard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thomas Graham.
Good evening. Thomas Gann, 10 Tusa Court, St. James. I think one of the important points that I could point out that differs from some of the other residents is Tusa Court runs on the other side of the train tracks, directly behind the facility. My property is directly behind that facility. Everyone talked about the nature of the neighborhood. Within 200 yards of my home, I have an easement to a sump, the high electric wires, train, Suffolk County Water Authority, and the nursing home. It really, having all those different utilities, it just, it doesn't seem to make sense to be adding another one. Everyone brought up the idea of the coverage. I had T-Mobile years ago. I could get coverage at my home. It just seems to make sense that another solution. I use Verizon today. I don't see why somebody brought up the point of would other phone carriers be utilizing this site? Why T-Mobile couldn't be utilizing other companies' sites to get the coverage that they need? As it relates to the appraisal, I think, quite frankly, that was a little insulting, at least to my intelligence, to say that if somebody walked in my backyard, literally, when everybody mentioned the foliage, in the winter, the lights from the nursing home come directly into my home. So the same thing would occur. So property values would be diminished. There are a number of homes along Tusa Court that would be affected by this. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Auerbach.
Hi, I'm Dan Auerbach, 28 Carnegie Drive, Smithtown, New York. First off, 25A is supposed to be a historic route, and we don't need a cell phone tower obstructing views driving down the road. I think one of the reasons, and you'd probably have to ask the T-Mobile guys, is because of 4G coming into service. They want customers, and they want more expensive customers. So what they're doing is they're saying, okay, 3G, everybody's got it. They want 4G so that they can get more money. That's all this is about. They don't care about our community. They don't care about anything but making more money. We don't need, to this existing site, another tower. You know, a lot of the things that are being said where, okay, if we have better cell phone service, we're going to have more expensive homes. Not true. If we have a tower in our backyard, we're going to have less expensive homes. We pay high enough taxes in Smithtown. We need the board here to say no. You say no to a lot of things. You don't want a 6-foot fence in my backyard that backs up to 25A. We don't want a 55-foot tower in my backyard that backs up to 25A. Radio frequency, you just heard from a nurse. If it's not true, why is a nurse telling us that it probably is true, that it's bad for health? No matter what they say, you got to take it with a grain of salt. They're looking at the glass is half empty. Well, it's probably not. The views that they gave you from the south, Lehman Court, from the east, Carnegie Drive, from the north, from the site, from the train station on the west, it's visible. You got to say no. Thank you.
Thank you. Vincent Murphy.
I am Vincent Murphy. I live in Carnegie Drive in Smithtown, New York. I'm retired. The first thing I want to know is T-Mobile being taken over by AT&T?
We can have him answer that later for you.
Okay. Because if AT&T takes it over, it would be an AT&T phone. All right?
Yeah.
I happen to be in favor of the tower. Because these things of electricity and what have you are definitely a necessity in the areas because we are demanding them every single day. I see my son, my wife, constantly using the phones. And consequently, I feel it should be there.
Thank you. Joe Farino. No Joe? Yes, Joe's gone. Okay. Lenore Cernitz.
Good evening.
You can pull it down. There you go.
Okay. Good evening, gentlemen. Lenore Cernitz and St. James. I was very interested and concerned that these people don't want this in their backyard. My concern for myself and for the general public is what Mr. DeRubius said before. I have no way of knowing how you gentlemen are going to vote on this, how you will come down on this subject. In the past, despite the fact that people have come and told you their concerns, there were times that you did vote for it when they would have preferred you not vote for it. So if you vote against it, if you vote for it and you decide you would change the location, how does that come about for everybody else that you don't have another public hearing for this? If you change the location, that means people will not be notified in the area of where the new location would be. You wouldn't have, we don't have tonight any visual experience of what a new location would be like if a mobile went up there. So I am concerned for those reasons, and I'd like you to take that into consideration, that public hearings in different locations should have another public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Ruggiero.
How How are you guys? My name is Michael Ruggiero, and I live at 31 Carnegie Drive in Smithtown. So I'm overlooking this tower too when I look out my door. I'm also a Nassau County detective, and the reason why I say that, because I know one of the gentlemen here said before that the radiation, there was not going to be a problem because, you know, he said it falls below standard. Well, you know what? During 9/11, they said that the air was good down there too. They told us we could go down there. Look at what's happening today. Now I have small children also. I have 11-year-old, 17, 14, and there's within our area on Carnegie Drive, there's a lot of little kids from ages 2 to 12. How is that going to affect them? You say there's no radiation. No, nobody really knows. Another little tidbit. I like the point that you made before that AT&T is right on the water tower. The water tower is very visible. It's always there. But, you know, I don't have AT&T service. What are you going to do? You're going to jump on, not even a half a mile away. If the service isn't good there, is it going to be really good now, not even a half a mile away? It's not going to make it any better. Myself, personally, I have Verizon. I don't like AT&T. I never had it. The signal's no good. Everybody knows that. Switch to Verizon. And the last little thing I want to say is, from a baseball perspective, this tower is huge, right? Do you know how tall the Green Monster is? The Green Monster is 37 feet high. This tower is 55. So you're going to look out, they're going to decorate it, they're going to make it look like a little tree. This tan tower look like a tree. I just think that it's going to look horrible. It's definitely going to decrease the value, the property value in the area. And I just want to let you know that I oppose it, and I hope you guys do too. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Gordon Torville. That's it? No more?
My name is Gordon Torville. I reside at 392 North Country Road in Smithtown. I'm opposed to a cell tower anywhere on this site. First of all, it concerns me a little bit because it seems like the board right now is encouraging T-Mobile to move their proposed tower to another location on that site. Number one, that's going to affect a different group of people if it's moved. Another hearing will have to take place because another mailing will have to go out for residents that weren't aware of this and weren't required to have a mailing. Second of all, that location that you've spoken of, I don't believe trees are 55 feet high there. Another thing is, these pictures are very nice here, but there's a good reason why they were taken in June and not in December or January, because there's no leaves on the trees. So why don't they take some pictures then and come back and show us, because I'm sure we're going to be able to see that site. Again, I'm very concerned about them moving or proposing to move this location to another area on that site. It's going to affect a different group of people, and they should be notified. Thank you.
There's no more people in the audience. Council, would you like to wrap up? And a gentleman asked you regarding, I know it's really not part of your application, the corporate structure of AT&T and Mobile. Are they joining, not joining?
Yes.
We said we'd answer his question for him.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Councilman. With respect to, there has been a proposal that's been announced as far as AT&T possibly buying T-Mobile. That is still headed through many regulatory hurdles. I can't tell you as I sit here today whether or not it's going to get through, which it has to, federal FCC approval as well as Securities and Exchange Commission, to name a few. Okay, so it's your guess is as good as mine is the short answer. I would like to address some of the items that were raised by the good members of the public here. First and foremost, I just want to talk with respect to the notice that went out. The notice, as you are aware, is prepared by the town clerk's office, and it was mailed to all 200 residents from the property line, not from where the proposed facility is going. So where we place the pole, 200 feet, I'm sorry, 200 feet from the property line. So where we place the pole on a property really is irrelevant, right, because it would be the same mailing regardless. The notices that went out, you have to look at the totality of it. The notices indicate, and just for the person that mentioned the branch, why that's on there, that's because that's the, let me pull this up. I'm a little taller than that. It's because that's based on a legal description that was taken from many years ago, which appears in all your deeds. So the area of the subdivision was actually called Smithtown Branch. It has nothing to do with the village of the branch. That's just your area, the subdivision map is what it's called. So with respect to, there was also posting that was done on the property, as well as, you know, people coming down here in and of itself. So there was plenty of notice. We complied with the town code to the letter. And with respect to not allowing the communication facility on residential property, that just simply is not correct. They are allowed on residential property. It just so happens that this residential property is used for a senior housing facility. I kind of liken these hearings very much to back 100 years ago in the 1800s when they were putting telephone poles up along the roadways. Now we don't even think of the telephone poles and the cables that run from them. But here we are, you know, with dealing with the new technology and trying to, you know, get the infrastructure up so that we could utilize this in many ways to help our economy. I would like to call Mr. Gardelman up, who we actually did prepare a lighting plan in advance of this hearing, which will demonstrate that there is no spillover whatsoever, as we're required to do under the town code, to the neighboring properties. There are 2 lights that are going approximately 10 feet high on the communication facility. That's so that if there are any technicians that have to go to the site at night, they'll be able to see, you know, because it is a kind of heavily wooded area back there. But what you're looking at, and I'll let Mr. Gardelman talk for a moment, it's a photometric study that was done in preparation for tonight's hearing, so I'll let him speak.
Thank you. As Mr. Brown mentioned, we did commission a photometric study of the 2 light fixtures that are in the corners of the fenced area. I might point out that all these numbers are as if there were no intervening fence lines or anything. It's a direct shining of the light on the ground surface. As you know, the lights are within the fence compound, so there will be some mitigating conditions by the fence, but this shows an absolute worst-case scenario as if there was a direct line of sight to the light fixture. What we're proposing on this site is to use what's known as a dark sky compliant light fixture, which means that there is no direct line of sight to the bulb itself at an angle of greater than 90 degrees. So in other words, from above the light fixture, you cannot see the lamp itself. So the darker numbers on this runout indicate where there is measurable foot candles shining on the ground. The perimeter, the last line of dark numbers, is 0.01 foot candles. That's the last measurable point. Everything else in this square is a measurable amount of 0. The smaller diagram here is a superimposition of this runout, and you can even see that it gets to a 0 lighting level very far from the property line. The amount of area that we took into account for the study is even far away from the property line. So we are in compliance with the town ordinance. The other item that I might point out is these lights will be connected to a timer, so there will be no instance where the tech would leave the site after he's fine-tuned the radio equipment and the lights would remain on permanently. They'll go off after a maximum of 3 hours.
Thanks, Mr. Gardelman. And at this time, I'd like to submit a copy of the lighting plan into the record. One point I'd like to point out is with respect to the design of the facility, the pole itself was specifically selected to have the as little visual obtrusiveness as possible. Very often we call these types of poles needles because they just go straight up in the air, and they're the most indiscernible types that are possible for the human eye. Essentially, especially if they're either brown or blue, the human eye doesn't even see it as you're driving by. And I contrast that with the facility that's located over on 38 Southern Boulevard, where we currently have a facility at 94 feet. That one's more of what we call a conventional tower, a lattice tower with a platform on it. The platforms are triangular-shaped platforms that some of you have seen, that the antennas, if the triangle is like that shuffleboard triangle, the antennas would be mounted vertically on the outside of that, and you'd see them quite distinctly. By housing them inside of what we call the stealth concealment pole, you can't see them at all. All you see is, in this case, a 24-inch wide, 2 feet wide pole that goes from base to the top. As a result of this, there's certain limitations, by the way, because of the technology. It's tougher for workers to get up there and actually work on the antennas when they have to do certain tuning that they have from time to time. They have to climb up there and they actually have to hang from it and do the work. But also, it's more difficult for the carriers to position the antennas in a particular location. So they don't really, they do it because it's necessary in order to keep the visual intrusiveness down. That's the point I'm trying to make to this board. And it was specifically chosen because of its proximity to the neighborhood so that you wouldn't really notice them. So just a couple more quick items that were brought up. I was correct. The new wireless ordinance was adopted by this board back in 2001. And I must say, it is, in case the members of the public don't know this, it is without a doubt one of the most rigorous wireless ordinances on Long Island. In terms of the visuals, we actually did show in the documents that were prepared by Ms. Donna Marie Stippo. If you look in the visual report, there was photographs Q, R, and S were taken from the right side of North Country Road, facing the field, so to speak, this northwest portion of the property. So you can get an idea, and I'm sure the members of the board are very familiar with this portion of the property. So just if I could, just check my notes real quick. And I would like to submit, for the record, Ms. Stippo found in her collection of photos, she took a photograph out at the site which depict the transmission lines and the high-tension towers that are along the Long Island Railroad tracks. There's actually two separate pictures there. So at this time, I'd like to just wrap up by thanking the members of the board and the members of the public for their attention and their patience while we get through this. I know this is very difficult, but with any new technology, you know, there's always the question, you know, of how to implement it in the best way. And I can tell you that the experts that I work with work very hard in order to make sure that they do it in a way that has the least impact whatsoever. That's their job, that's their charge, and they take it very seriously. We would just like to state to the members of the board that we are amenable, as we discussed, to moving the pole to the northwest corner of the property, provided that it doesn't cause any type of variant situation. As you know, it's important under the declaratory ruling promulgated by the FCC back in 2009 that we obtain our zoning approvals as quickly as possible in order to broadcast the wireless technology as quickly as possible nationwide. So at this point, I'd like to conclude by saying that we believe that the board should grant the application since this communication facility complies with all applicable requirements of the Telecommunications Act of 1996, New York State Town Law, and the Town of Smithtown Code. T-Mobile is respectfully requesting a special exception pursuant to Chapters 242 and 322 of the Town Code to construct, operate, and maintain the communication facility at the property. The granting of this application would, in a word, allow the applicant to eliminate a deficiency that it's experiencing in this particular area of North Country Road in Smithtown, as well as to aid public health, safety, and general welfare by allowing immediate access to 911 emergency service, which includes not only police, fire, and rescue from wireless phones, but others as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we have one more speaker, Rose Palazzolo. Thank you. Thank you, Council.
I think that we're not really addressing this properly, because when this new law was passed that there could be more cell towers put in an area, there's no law that says how many. And I would like to know how many T-Mobile cell towers have been put in Smithtown and how many other towers have been put in Smithtown since this ordinance went into effect, because the shortage may not exist anymore. And I know when I had my cell phone in 2003, it was AT&T, I had to go outside my door to use my cell phone. It is now 2011, 8 years later. I now have a Samsung, but I do pay AT&T, and I get good reception in my house now. I no longer have to go outside. No matter where I go in the town of Smithtown, my phone works. And I think everybody else has also said that their phones now work. And they don't have a problem with getting reception on their cell phones. So I think that we ought to follow what the town of Huntington did and put a moratorium and really look at where these cell towers are in town and ask the people to send you a telegram or a notice or whatever if they're having problems getting reception in the town of Smithtown. That's what we should do. Take a survey of our people and not pay attention to these cell phone companies who want to erect more towers. And the other thing is, we have hurricanes, and I don't know if we're going to get a big hurricane like they got down in the south, or tornadoes, which we're getting upstate New York now. Will these cell towers fall if they're hit by a hurricane or a tornado? Let's think of safety for the people.
Thank you. Anybody else we heard?
We have,
And we have one person.
Yeah, Deputy Supervisor, we have a letter from Peter and Carol Perquette at 16 Lyman Court, a written objection. They couldn't be here this evening, so we'll put that in the record.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to be heard on the board? No. Move to close the hearing.
Second. Deputy Supervisor McCarthy?
Yes.
Councilman Wareham?
Yes.
Councilman Creighton?
Yes.
Councilman Malloy?
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on to the rest of the agenda. Appointments by the supervisor. Supervisor Vecchio hereby appoints Scott Brother to the Youth Advisory Board. Number 2, Supervisor Vecchio appoints John Morris as Budget Officer. And 3, Supervisor Vecchio hereby appoints Lauren Biggin to Youth Advisory Board. Move on to correspondence. Correspondence, Parade Run Walk, Smithtown Christian School, second reading. Number 2, Parade Run Walk, Wood Park Primary School, second reading. And special event, Kings Park Chamber of Commerce, Kings Park Day, second reading. Okay. Anybody wish to be heard on these? No? Okay, we'll move on to advertise for public hearings. We'll be advertising for 4 different public hearings. Town Board to authorize the town clerk to advertise for public hearing to be held at the Victor T. List Boardroom, 99 West Main Street, Smithtown, on June 7, 2011 at 2:01 p.m. to consider amending Chapter 323, Transfer of Density Flow Rights of the Town Code in order to permit density flow rights to be transferred to municipal facilities.
Need a second?
No, that's on. Let's call the vote.
Oh, yeah. All right. Councilman Malloy?
Yes.
Councilman Creighton?
Yes.
Councilman Wareham?
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy?
Yes. Item number 2, the town board to authorize the town clerk to advertise for a public hearing to be held at the Eugene Cantaro Senior Citizen Center on the 23rd day of June, 2011 at 7 p.m. to consider amending the zoning code of the map of the town of Smithtown as petitioned by King Cullen Grocery Company, Inc., zoning petition 2010-02 for a change of zone from R10 to CB zoning, property located on the east side of Washington Avenue, 108.90 feet of 3rd Avenue, St. James, New York.
Councilman Malloy.
Yes.
Councilman Creighton.
Yes.
Councilman Wareheim.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes. Number 3, the town board to authorize the town clerk to advertise for public hearing to be held at the Eugene Cantaro Senior Citizen Center, 420 Middle Country Road, Smithtown, New York, on the 23rd day of June, 2011 at 7 p.m. to consider amending zoning code and map of the town of Smithtown as petitioned by Edwin and Patricia Martello, zoning petition 2010-10 for a change of zone from WSI to PB, district property located on the east side of Lake Avenue, north of Middle Country Road, St. James.
Councilman Malloy.
Yes.
Councilman Creighton.
Yes.
Councilman Wareheim.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes. Item number 4, the town board to authorize the town clerk to advertise for a public hearing to be held at the Eugene Cantaro Senior Citizen Center, 420 Middle Country Road, on the 23rd day of June, 2011 at 7 p.m. to consider petition 2011-B, the town board's own motion to return a parcel to its previous zoning classification of PB district back to R10, located on the west side of New York State Route 25, as per item number 4 of the printed agenda.
Councilman Malloy.
Yes.
Councilman Creighton.
Yes.
Councilman Wareheim.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes. Resolutions, item number 1 on the resolutions. Town board to authorize the town clerk to advertise for the following bids to be returned to town hall on the below dates. Bid 11-045, fire training simulator, returnable on June 23rd, 2011. Bid 11-044, underground storage tank monitoring system, returnable June 23rd, 2011. And bid 11-046, sweet streeper, June 23rd, 2011, returnable.
Councilman Malloy.
Yes.
Councilman Creighton.
Yes.
Councilman Wareheim.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes. Item number 2, the town board to award the following bids and to advertise the purchase of associated goods and services. A, bid number 11-035 for recycling containers, and B, bid 11-018 for concrete slab at MSF.
Councilman Malloy.
Yes.
Councilman Creighton.
Yes.
Councilman Wareheim.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes. The town board to approve the following matters as per 3A through P of the printed agenda. Town attorney or appropriate official to enter into a stipulated settlement for various tax certiorari years. Patrick R. Vecchio, supervisor, appointment of Scott Brother, Youth Advisory Board, establishment of standard work day for planning board officials. D, Supervisor Vecchio's appointment of Laura Biggin to Youth Advisory Board. E, Superintendent of Highways to enter into agreements with local fire, water, school district, and villages. F, designate Sheila D. Ambrosio, Handicap Services Aide. G, Highway Department to purchase 1 combination sand salt spreader. H, the Planning and Community Development Department, Community Development Corporation of Long Island to apply for additional FSS administration funding. I, Town Board to grant approval of zoning petition 2011-A, Town Board's own motion. J, Town Clerk to issue a special events permit for Kings Park Chamber of Commerce for the annual Kings Park Festival Day, Saturday, June 18th. K, Town Clerk to issue a parade walk permit for Smithtown Christian School Run Walk for Saturday, July 9th, 2011. L, Town Clerk to issue a parade walk for Wood Primary School for June 2nd, 2011. M, continued services of Germino Cahill PC to represent the town as special counsel for solid waste matters. N, Town Board to grant approval of zoning petition 2010-12, SciTech Wireless, special exception. Okay. Give us 1 second. Okay. O, Town Board to grant approval of zoning petition 2010-13 by SciTech Wireless LLC, special exception. And P, the rejection of all bids received on April 21st, 2011, in connection with bid number 11-300 for a 10-wheel truck.
Councilman Malloy.
Yes.
Councilman Creighton.
Yes.
Councilman Wareham.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes. Item number 4, the town board, after due study and deliberation of subject record, to issue a secret negative declaration to determination of non-significance. Town board's own motion 2011-8 to amend condition number 4 of the approval of change of zone petition 92-02 and to amend covenants and restrictions regarding change of zone petition 92-2 of May 19, 2011, as per the printed agenda.
Councilman Malloy.
Yes.
Councilman Creighton.
Yes.
Councilman Wareham.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes. Number 5, LWRP A, the town board to issue a written consistency determination persistent to Chapter 151 of the Town Code. The application 2010-12 Smithtown Bay Yacht Club is consistent with this LWRP. Subject condition stated is not May 9, 2011 memorandum from the planning director.
Councilman Malloy.
Yes.
Councilman Creighton.
Yes.
Councilman Wareham.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Abstain. Item number 6, the town board to authorize the acceptance of the following: a donation of $50 and Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce proposal for funding from the County of Suffolk, as per A and B of the printed agenda number 6.
Councilman Malloy.
Yes.
Councilman Creighton.
Yes.
Councilman Wareham.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Okay. Item number 7, the town board to authorize the controller to execute the following transfers as per 7A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, and J of the printed agenda.
Councilman Malloy.
Yes.
Councilman Creighton.
Yes.
Councilman Wareham.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes. Item number 8, the town board to authorize the supervisor to execute a form approved by the town attorney as per 8A through F, agreement with town employees permitting voluntary transfer of sick time, waiver of hearing and stipulated agreement with Suffolk County Department of Health. C, amendment with Kathy Lesher regarding Horizons. D, amendment with Pamela Mizzi, consulting services for Horizons. E, amendment agreement with Patricia Fien to provide counseling service for Horizons. And F, third-party custodial agreement, Town of Smithtown Depositor, as per item F of the A, B, C, D, E, and F of the agenda.
Councilman Malloy.
Yes.
Councilman Creighton.
Yes.
Councilman Wareham.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes. Item number 9, the town board to approve settlement in the following matters as per recommendation of the town attorney. Item A, $789.47, and B, $350.
Councilman Malloy.
Yes.
Councilman Creighton.
Yes.
Councilman Wareham.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes. Item number 10, the town board to authorize the release of the following as per 10A, B, C, D, and E: a bank check, a bank check, a bank check, a growth in life bond, and an escrow.
Councilman Malloy.
Yes.
Councilman Creighton.
Yes.
Councilman Wareham.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes. Under the personnel, the town board to approve the following personnel as per 11A through L. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H are seasonal appointments. H is a part-time appointment. I is an accepting volunteer services. J, K, and L are seasonal appointments.
Councilman Malloy.
Yes.
Councilman Creighton.
Yes.
Councilman Wareham.
Yes.
Councilman McCarthy.
Yes. Okay, we have 3 read-ons. A change in status for Paul Saladino. Change in status for an hourly rate of Paul Saladino, part-time labor in the Traffic Safety Department, a rate of pay of $12 an hour, not to exceed half the normal work week, effective May 31st, 2011.
Second.
Second.
Deputy Supervisor McCarthy.
Yes.
Councilman Wareham.
Yes.
Councilman Creighton.
Yes.
Councilman Malloy.
Yes.
And second read-on, medical leave of absence for Matthew Ryan, Highway Project Inspector for the Highway Department, effective May 28th, 2011, for a period not to exceed 3 months.
Need a second?
Second.
Deputy Supervisor McCarthy.
Yes.
Councilman Wareham.
Yes.
Councilman Creighton.
Yes.
Councilman Malloy.
Yes.
And the third read-on, road abandonment portion of Gibbs Pond Road. Abandonment of a portion of Gibbs Pond Road in Wisconsin, Smithtown, New York, with the consent of the highway superintendent pursuant to petition for road abandonment under Highway Law, Section 207, and to authorize the supervisor to execute a deed conveying the town's interest therein to the County of Suffolk, further to request conveyance of the resulting assembled parcel from the County of Suffolk pursuant to General Municipal Law, Section 72-H, for the purpose of establishing a 9/11 First Responders Memorial at that location.
Second.
Deputy Supervisor McCarthy.
Yes.
Councilman Wareham.
Yes.
Councilman Creighton.
Yes.
Councilman Malloy.
Yes.
Okay, members to be heard. Rose Marie Byrne. Okay. Nope. Rose Land, you've already heard. Want to be heard again, Rose? Something else?
Yes.
traffic signal.
Okay, the
Edgewood
topic
Lane.
has to do with Edgewood Avenue
We're working on that.
and Landing Avenue.
We're working on it.
As usual, I'm ahead of the curve. I brought this topic up to Mr. Crowley, who is the Director of Traffic Safety Department, and I wasn't happy with the way the turning lane was changed at that corner. The turning lane used to be you can make a left-hand turn to go to Town Hall. They did some kind of one-day survey, and Supervisor Vecchio was nice enough to send me the results of that one-day survey. That one-day survey said that only left-hand turns were only 26% at that corner. And that meant the rest of the traffic goes straight down to Jericho or makes a right to go to Kings Park. However, to make a left-hand turn, if you want to make a left-hand turn, you have to stay at the green light. And everybody behind you breaks the law, goes into the turning lane that goes on Landing to reach Kings Park, and goes around and goes straight down to Jericho. Now, this can be changed with a traffic light. You can make a turning lane, turning signal, and you could stop the traffic from coming up from Jericho, going towards Edgewood, going along Edgewood to where the school is. Because I notice when I go home to St. James and I'm driving on Edgewood, if traffic is coming out of the middle school, the light automatically turns red, and the traffic comes out from the school, and the traffic going towards 25A is stopped on Edgewood. So the cars could come out and go down to 25A. I think if they really looked at that traffic signal, that they could change it and make it safe for the 26% of the people who have to make left-hand turns over there. That's one thing. So I really feel that that should be looked into. And the reason why I say I'm ahead of the curve is because I answered Mr. Crowley in a letter, and I said, you're only interested in traffic flow. You're not interested in traffic safety. And now the state of New York, DOT, now is going to look into traffic safety and traffic flow, not just traffic flow. And that's what has to be changed, the traffic flow. Traffic safety, I mean. Traffic flow is, but not traffic safety.
Well, about 6 or 7 months ago, the town board authorized a appraisal of certain properties right in that area to work, and it's in the process of being worked on, that intersection, for the future.
I read something like that, but
Yes.
I'm glad to hear
And
you
the
say
appraisal was
it.
done, and the town attorney's office is working on that as we speak.
Because I'm not the only resident who is unhappy with not being able to make a left turn safely.
All right, thank you. Mary Beth Siskin?
Franklin and Jericho.
Good evening, Deputy Supervisor McCarthy, Councilman Creighton, Malloy, and Wareheim. I'd like to talk more about traffic safety. First of all, I wish to begin by saluting Lavina Sipes and Barbara Gallagher for their brave participation at the May 10th Town Board meeting public comment section. I hope that the sisters from Central Islip who were struck on May 5th, Melody and Mabel Burgos, are recovering from their injuries. I recognize the positive steps that the Smithtown Town Board has taken in coordination with NYSDOT. I'm happy to hear there will be more police presence along this stretch of Main Street. A video about school bus safety that I watched many years ago when my daughter was an elementary student quoted a traffic expert as saying, The best education about school bus safety is a ticket. Enforcement is needed, or the laws have no teeth. I recently heard on the radio that in New York State, 50,000 vehicles pass stopped school buses every day. The road traveling through Smithtown is Main Street, Route 25, and Route 25A. For better or worse, this is where the town settled. Safety of pedestrians should be number one, not moving vehicles rapidly through Main Street. Just what Rose was just saying now. If I remember comments from the May 10th meeting accurately, Lawrence Avenue and Main Street, Smithtown, is now the most dangerous intersection for pedestrians in the tri-state area. So, what does this speaker suggest? Of course, I like the suggestions of Mr. DeRubies and Mr. Mancini to reconfigure Main Street as 2 lanes, one going east, one going west, and an additional middle lane for turns. Who knows how long it will take to accomplish that? In the meantime, I would suggest lowering the speed limit between Route 111 and Brookside Drive to 20 miles per hour. I would suggest that a sign be placed on Route 25 before Old Willets Path for eastbound traffic and before Terry Road for westbound traffic. The signs would indicate the upcoming 20 miles per hour and strongly suggest that drivers who do not wish to comply with the lowered speed limit drive toward Route 347, where the speed limit is 55 miles per hour. My second suggestion was suggested by another speaker at the May 10th meeting. Construct a pedestrian crossover and walkover on Lawrence Avenue and Main Street so pedestrians can safely cross above the road. Some longtime residents have told me this was suggested many decades ago. I concur with Barbara Gallagher that is very frightening crossing in the Lawrence Avenue crosswalk, even with the signal telling you that you may cross. Many vehicles traveling north on Lawrence Avenue who wish to go west, make a left turn, very grudgingly let pedestrians cross. Pedestrians need greater protection. Perhaps there could be a sign, no left turn until pedestrians have crossed the road. I will share my ideas with NYSDOT. Thank you for your time and extra time.
Mr. Mancini? No, not left. Okay, move to close the hearing.
Supervisor McCarthy?
Yes.
Councilman Wareham?
Yes.
Councilman Creighton?
Yes.
Councilman Malloy?
Yes.